Okay guys, so as you know, I don't primarily do battles on my main channel. Now they're typically found on my second channel, The Coffee Shop. However, due to my love for doing versus battles and just talking about topics like that in general, I will try at least weekly to have a big battle on this channel, my main channel, Jobbers and Goons. Make sure to like and subscribe already if you haven't. And in doing so, I pick a matchup I basically find to be very interesting, give my reasons on it, and we do the battle. So today's Who Will Win features Talion from Lord of the Rings and the games that follow it versus Darth Vader, the Dark Lord from Star Wars, and one of the most iconic villains ever. If these two clashed, who do I think would win? I'm going to let you know after I break both down. Let me know in the comment section what battle deserves to be seen on the Who Will Win series. If you want to see your favorite character either here or on my second channel, The Coffee Shop, hit me up on Discord and we can talk about purchasing, as prices were cut in half not too long ago. So great deals to strike up. But anyways, getting back to this, I hope you guys enjoy this. And without further ado, let's immerse ourselves in the battle. Now, before we start, like I said, when I do major battles like this from now on, I kind of want to give you guys insight into why I picked it. Some of the reasons for why I picked this matchup include Vader and Talion were top of their class as warriors on the battlefield. Both are haunted by their inability to save their own family despite their power. They are driven by both revenge and anger at themselves and at the situation. They are broken spirit characters of sorts. That's kind of part of their narrative. They draw on supernatural / ethereal power to destroy their enemies. They are known primarily as gifted swordsmen, and also the best aspects of them, which Darth Vader would be legends, and Talion would be his story in general. They're both considered, quote, non-canon. But as fans, we're going to celebrate both today, explore both. I'm going to go ahead and break down both characters, and at the end, I'll let you know who I think will win. Without further ado, let's begin. First character I'm going to break down is Darth Vader. Formerly the Chosen One, and raised as a Jedi after he was taken out of child slavery by Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, young Anakin Skywalker would grow up under the helm of the Jedi Academy and Obi-Wan Kenobi as Qui-Gon was slain by Agent of the Sith Darth Maul. Looking to find a way to protect his mom and get her off the planet, Anakin would grow up a powerful Jedi considered the Chosen one destined to bring balance to the Force, the power that governs all things. Now, as the Chosen One, he grew quickly, even surpassing his peers despite the fact they had such an experience gap on him. And he would grow quickly into a Jedi Padawan and then eventually a Jedi Knight. During the Clone Wars, Anakin would serve bravely, even becoming arguably the most notable Clone Wars general in history, winning countless battles on the field and challenging powerhouses like Count Dooku. Eventually, he would slay Count Dooku, and looking for a way to protect his family, which he had incoming kids, as well as to protect his secret lover Padme, which broke the Jedi Code. He sought power through the dark side by seeking to learn under Emperor Palpatine, aka the Chancellor. This secret Dark Lord promised Anakin the ability to save his family if he so chose. Instead, Anakin turned him in. However, during the arrest, when Mace Windu was about to strike down Sidious, this is when Anakin lashed out, destroying his chance at being a Jedi and officially becoming a Dark Lord as Sidious survived the encounter and christened Anakin as Darth Vader. Under the new title of Lord Vader, he slaughtered a shit ton of younglings, beat up several Jedi, led several troopers to take down Jedi in Order 66, even taking the Jedi Temple, slaying the very formidable Sindralig, the Battle Master and Keeper of the Temple, and forcing Shaak Ti, renowned Jedi Master, to run in fear. Eventually, the wrath of this Lord Vader would be brought to an end by Obi-Wan Kenobi, who dueled him on Mustafar. The former master was able to strike down the much more gifted fighter in Anakin due to Anakin's arrogance and inability to see that he could indeed lose if he did not operate in accordance. Losing several of his limbs and burning in the lava, Anakin survived through sheer hatred, and when he woke up, he was in a cybernetic body, in immense pain as he also learned he failed to save his family. Thrust into darkness, Darth Vader took in the role of Dark Lord and took it very seriously, going on to slay any who stood against the Empire and his Lord, Darth Sidious. Now, what made this interesting, obviously, Vader found himself in an emotional black hole and was giving into the dark side, but he also still hated Sidious and was secretly trying to lash out against him. For instance, the Star Killer scenario where he literally tried to raise Galen Marek to one day help him take down Sidious, and he would later ask his own son Luke to join him to take down the Emperor. He hated the Emperor, no doubt about it. In his time serving as the Fist of the Empire, Vader had several kills to his name, and was the most menacing figure in all the cosmos. Now, eventually the rebellion, led by young Luke Skywalker, would clash against him in the Empire, and during this battle, he would fight his son several times. The first time, of course, he easily defeated him and asked the young Jedi to join him on the dark side. When he refused, they would later fight again, and after prompting Luke to tap into the dark side himself by angering him by bringing up his sister, Luke would defeat Vader. As Sidious started to kill Luke with his lightning because Luke would not join the dark side, Vader rose against Sidious, lifting him up and throwing him into the shaft of the Death Star and killing the mortal body of Sidious. However, before he could celebrate, of course, the lightning from Sidious devastated Vader, destroying his suit and bringing his life to an end, as he did end up bringing balance to the Force, at least temporarily, by stopping the Emperor and saving his son, Luke Skywalker. Now, with his backstory out the way, what does Darth Vader bring to the table? First, let's go over the things he mainly does, which is duel, right? As one of the greatest duelists, no doubt about it, to ever wield a lightsaber, Darth Vader is well balanced in several forms of lightsaber combat. This includes Shicho, of course, the basics. Mostly, he is known for Jimso, which is a strong base style, which essentially the methodology behind it is allow them to strike, stonewall, and then react with powerful, brutal counters. While Anakin was perhaps the greatest Jimso user we have ever seen, even according to Count Dooku, who is one of the most studied duelists ever, we know Vader could not adapt this same exact style as his previous self, Anakin, because Anakin was so much faster and so much more agile, given the fact he didn't get cut and shredded apart. So Vader, he kept Jimso, but kind of turned it and shifted it more towards a Makashi variant as well, instead of the quick footwork of Ataru. This way, Vader could balance his core best principles, which is toughness and strength, and technical skill, and Makashi is more of a dueling style anyway, so and it maximizes leverage. So as a duelist, he can maximize his strength, knock you off guard, and then use the swift, brutal counters of Jimso, as well as use Form 7 Juyo, which is most aggressive. As well, personally to me, I think he was very talented at Form 6, which is basically a style that incorporates a little bit of everything, as well as balancing force attacks, which we know Vader is known to use force techniques during dueling. So, overall, he's one of the most formidable duelists in Star Wars, with a very balanced style that plays very well into what he does best, and usually he's very good about sticking to his core principles as a duelist instead of, giving in to fighting the opponent's style, which goes very well for him in most cases. Moving on to what else he brings to the table, let's talk about the Force. When he was Anakin, it was actually stated by Lucas himself that Anakin would have twice the power of Sidious one day, and this power would include equal. Like, we literally saw Sidious light up hundreds, if not thousands, of ships at one time. He's lit up planets before in Legends, manipulate force storms, black holes later on. Contended with Yoda, who literally boxed up a character whose laugh itself could literally throw meteors out of orbit. It's ridiculous. All this potential power was significantly cut down when Vader lost several limbs and was just emotionally scarred overall as well. This loss of potential brought him down to, at best, 80% of what Sidious could do, according to Lucas, which still is very impressive and still makes him very dangerous. Now, as Vader, where he didn't have his younger self's raw power and latent potential, here he still had a great deal of room to grow, simply because as Anakin, he didn't care to learn nearly as much as he could have, because he was just raw power. He could just walk through people. He didn't really have to get meticulous in his learning. As Vader, he took the time to slow down, embrace the Force, embrace the dark side, and truly begin to study all the esoteric properties of it and how to become stronger. This led to, while not perhaps as strong in raw power as his former self, a more refined version of what Anakin could have ever been as a Force user. Now, with the dark side of the Force, what is Vader able to do? Obviously, through physical bolstering, he is able to become a superhuman in physicality. This includes easily reacting to hyperspace, easily reacting to Sidious himself, reacting to hyperspace jumps, which are MFTL, reacting to laser bolts like it's nothing. I mean, all these things reacting to FTL plus characters in their own right gives Vader, especially in Legends, easily higher tier scaling. We know characters powerful in the Force who go to properties like Mortis, which is beyond time and space, technically have higher tier scaling metas for speed. His passive abilities also, in my opinion, greatly increased. For example, he can passively has force shields, precog, that was massively amped with the dark side, which allows him to obviously see attacks coming, sense incoming danger, sense people coming in general. He can even sense spirits and things of a non-corporeal nature. His abilities through the Force also allow him great range, including choking a Wookiee from orbit. His Force choke is very famous. He's even broken through the Force walls of fellow Force users, so even if you have resistance against TK, unless you show great resistance against TK, it's likely he could get through your defenses. He has manipulation through the Force, through the point that he can actually melt your insides or manipulate your insides if you don't have good defense against TK. He has, of course, TK pushes and pulls to create separation. He can weaponize the environment by lifting several objects up at once and hurling them at his opponents. He can catch and deflect energy blasts if needed. He can obviously do so pretty easily through his lightsaber. He is able to increase his speed significantly when he needs to through Force Rage. This also increases his strength as well. He's overall in strength, even by Sith tier, a freak in strength, given his cybernetics plus power in the Force. So dueling with him as well can be very exhausting, as each hit feels like it could break your arms, even to characters like Starkiller. Vader is also very resilient, as even if his system is compromised, assuming this is Prime Legends Vader, he could survive a couple days through the Force alone without repairs, which is pretty crazy, as his rage is almost like inconceivable at this point. So overall, through the Force, he has several TK abilities, heightened senses, heightened physicality. He has his lightsaber, his armored suit, his toughness, rage. He also has passive hate hacks and evil, where basically if you're not of strong will and strong mental resilience, his passive fear hacks will actually make you like cower and go basically comatose in his presence, which is nuts. But overall, Vader is a very formidable opponent with several interesting powers. He's an elite strategist, duelist, and fighter. and is someone that is hard for most characters to get out the way. Next, let's shift our focus over to the second combatant in this fight, Talion from Shadows of Mordor. As a being stuck in the Tolkien verse, which is one of the greatest verses ever created, don't at me, the Lord of the Rings franchise, while considered non-canon, again, like Legends of Vader is considered non-canon, we don't really care. We're going to talk about his lore and give a little bit more context and background behind how these things work. So, Talion was a ranger. In this time, men, of course, would struggle to maintain their fight against the darkness, the ever-looming darkness. And as a result, several of the men, most notably the rangers, are well adept and well-versed in combat, including melee and sword fighting. Talion was no exception. He was a great ranger. And eventually, he would get taken down by the Black Hand of Sauron, the evil sorcerer of the verse. And at this point, while fighting, his family was slain and he was killed. However, in being killed, Talion was so fierce, his soul so wrecked, soul split by this horrific event that shook him. It caused him to not go on to death. He actually remained banished from death. This allowed his soul to then go forth and blend with a wraith. This wraith, Celebrimbor, it was stated that when he came together and forged himself with the soul and body of Talion, the power, skill, speed, all of this was greatly, significantly increased due to this, to the point that his power alone rivaled that of one of the great Rings of Powers. With the great Rings of Powers being able to take down someone like Sauron, who, in the lore and greater context of the books in the Tolkien verse, was like an archetypal being that came down from beyond creation, as like Eru and other beings are like archetypal in nature, and angels and such. So Sauron does have higher power scaling and higher dimensional scaling, which is pretty cool. So the power sources that they use are a lot stronger than people think. And as this bounded wraith warrior known as the Grave Walker, Talion would go on a horrific rebellion streak that would make him a legend throughout Mordor. Now, as an agent of chaos in this rebellion, the Grave Walker would go forth, corrupting orcs, even the higher ones alike, killing them, forcing them to do his bidding, getting stronger all the way, becoming a much better duelist, becoming much better with his abilities. Eventually, he would use abilities such as teleporting, creating clones, using light-based blasts. His own kind of like TK blast has precog and can sense incoming danger. His speed's greatly increased, as well as he can possess others, attack your mind, and attack your soul. As well as he has several other weapons, such as his bow of fire. And like I said, he can even fight astral beings and beings with ethereal power, like the Witch King, and hold his own and damage them with his attacks. So all his weapons combined with his wraith power are very formidable. As well as the abilities I just mentioned, this overall makes him very dangerous. As a swordsman, he was already very talented, as human swordsmen in the verse oftentimes have to be much more skilled than even the other beings like orcs, because orcs are simply physically more dominant than humans. And so because of this, orcs are also, they grow up in like a war culture. They're not slouches in combat. Still, humans have to be able to overcome them, so as a result, they train heavily in combat. So as a ranger and one of the top rangers around, Talion was definitely one of the most skilled fighters. And this was significantly amped by the Wraith, who gave him power and knowledge spanning generations. So he's actually quite the talent as a fighter and duelist, skilled in guerrilla warfare tactics, more known for his hit and run tactics, brutal takedowns, stealth kills. His fighting style is primarily showcased as something based around quick hits and taking down people fast, as opposed to like a long drawn out duel. He's not a patient fighter. He's here to get you out the way so he can progress. Unless, of course, he's fighting someone that he expects to be of great power, like the Witch King, in which his style might change, movements will change and such, but as a whole, typically he's always going for the kill and trying to finish you as soon as powerful. With power equal to that of a great ring, his abilities are quite formidable. His willpower hacks, his own resolve. If he dies, he's actually banished from death until he slays the ones that brought such hatred to him due to killing him and his family. When he accomplishes this, he can potentially seek death. However, at this point, he can't. So if he is physically slain or defeated, the Wraith can forge a tower and bring him back. And he will just automatically come back, body and all, ready to fight again. So he actually does have this weird bit of immortality attached to him narratively, which is pretty interesting. But overall, as a fighter, Talion is very dangerous, able to go up against even the Witch King, with the Witch King being a being that scares even characters like Gandalf, who can fight Balrogs, as well as he should scale to, if not above, Balrogs, given that Balrogs are stated to literally be able to casually raise the earth if they want to, or destroy a planet if unchecked. They could scale easily to planetary, and should scale above, given they do descend from beings of higher dimensional properties, but again, we can lowball to planetary as well. So Talion easily does have great strength scaling. He's a celebrated duelist, well adept at this point, and using his abilities combined with his natural talents as a former ranger that have been enhanced. And his abilities with the powers of the Wraith, his immortality, his light blast, his clones, his teleporting, all this makes him into a very dangerous character to put in a versus battle, because he's very versatile, and if he's close in power, he can make it interesting. So, if this Dark Lord of the Sith was to clash with this Ranger from Middle-earth, who would win? Broken Spirit versus Broken Spirit, Fallen Hero versus Fallen Hero. Who wins in this clash of monsters of the battlefield? First, we will review the dueling aspect and combat in this matchup. So, as duelists, is pretty interesting. Obviously, as you know, Talion is well versed in dueling, which was only amped after death. However, I don't see this being quite enough to overcome the dueling expertise of Darth Vader. After all, Darth Vader is a character who studied the dueling practices and tactics of thousands of years of duelists. He's learned from both the light and dark side, so literally he's learned about as much as you can as a duelist up to his era in terms of what styles existed before him. With his adaptability, versatility, and practice in dueling, I do think he has a edge there against Talion. Not the biggest edge, but it definitely is there. I think if they were to just strictly duel with only swordplay, Vader would come out on top due to his strength, poise, and different looks he can throw towards Talion, where Talion kind of fights a certain way. Aggressive, he's not really a defensive style fighter. So I definitely think in terms of skill, Vader's got him. Now, I will say what's worth noting that makes Talion very dangerous in this context is that's just one aspect of melee combat. I do think in hand-to-hand, as actually just using killing techniques with straight hand-to-hand melee, I'd probably favor Talion slightly. More versatile, more agile, quite literally uses those type of up-close assassination techniques quite more frequently than someone like Vader does. And I think his experience in fighting prowess as a ranger in hand-to-hand combat and all that, it would allow him to potentially make it a lot more dirty of a fight than just strictly swordplay up close, as well as he obviously has things like explosions and ranged weaponry that could at least annoy Vader or force him to react in a way. So he could use that as well to make the dueling aspect a lot more closer, given that the melee combat has a lot more aspects than just swords play. However, like I said, I favor Vader's swords play. So I would give the slight edge of melee combat to Vader. However, it's not a great gap. Now, looking over at their abilities and the other things they bring to the table, hacks, abilities, gear, this is a situation where one comes through the power of the Wraith, which is nearly equal to the Ring of Power. And with this, he can use Light Blast, Talion, of course. He can play with your mind. He can attack your soul and try to destroy your soul. He can try to possess you and corrupt your thoughts. He can use hallucinations and illusions. He can teleport. He can create clones. Even if he's trapped, he can teleport out and that way. It's pretty crazy, the extent of versatility with his abilities, as well as he has really good regen. And if he dies, he can come back via his Wraith power. Literally right away, it'll construct a forge right there and pop him out. So he has pretty good range and versatility with his abilities, as well as his sword, which is able to stand against the Witch King and even damage him. So it also can attack on an astral level, which makes sense because it's also imbued with Wraith power. He also has this Wraith ability where you can see Wraith World, where not only does he see the physical, he sees like the astral and beyond. So he can detect things that are even hidden or invisible, which is pretty dope. And it just overall shows his bag of tricks are quite interesting and dangerous to deal with. Whereas Vader has his own set of tools through the Force that are just tough out. Like, so for example, well refined in TK, he can balance using this and disrupting the battlefield while dueling up close. So he is a very balanced fighter. Vader can force choke. He can try to destroy your insides. He could use his fear hacks to passively try to get in your mind and make you fearful of him and thus give up. He can literally telepathically attack your mind. He can disrupt the battlefield with massive, force pulse type attacks. He can block incoming energy attacks and deflect them. Overall, with his precog as well, Vader is a very versatile fighter who also knows how to use his abilities to his advantage the best way. Like, his style fits him perfectly. So, in this aspect, who do I give the edge to in terms of abilities versus just regular fighting? I think Talion's bag of tricks is a little more favorable here. And will do more favors for him in terms of win cons. I think the light blasts are devastating, the clones, the teleporting. I think all of this favors him. I think the best win cons for Darth Vader would be like his dueling, and he probably has more favorable scaling in the speed department. However, I definitely think Talion scaling to someone like the Witch King and being stated to have potentially taken on Sauron himself, he would be able to be fast enough to contend with a character like Vader pretty easily. And through his versatility, his relentless style, his speed, his aggression, and his power, I believe Talion would actually bring the fight to Vader, put him on his back heel, and while Vader is aggressive, usually he wins a lot of fights before they even start. That is, he intimidates them. He uses hacks very well to create this overwhelming feeling in the fight. But this is all something that Talion's completely adjusted to, completely equipped to handle mentally and spiritually, and it won't affect him at all in this battle. And as a result, I see with his pressure, his soul-based attacks, his light-based attacks, his overall power and versatility, I think Talion, more often than not, would defeat the Dark Lord Darth Vader. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think of this battle. Who do you think would win? If you like the battle, let me know in the comment section down below. And if you're excited for another week of versus battles, or who will win, the next week I'm doing Ash Williams versus Van Helsing. We will see which legendary monster fighters would come out victorious. If they clash, that'll be an exciting battle. Run the likes up if you're excited for that as well. As well as if you want to just see versus battles more often, go to my second channel and subscribe, The Coffee Shop. That would definitely be awesome. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to join my server. We're approaching 600. I'll drop the new link in the video description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been your boy Jobbers and Goons, and I will see y'all later. Peace.